Stop it! Can you print the project yet?
I actually don't have your project. I have two groups that are each Friday you don't have. I'll check. Hold on, I'll take that right now.
Anybody who knows Marley, do you want to sign a card?
No.
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 She's in the hospital.
I'll sign it.
No.
But I'm sure. Does anyone knows Marley or talks to her?
I don't know.
I'll sign it.
What happened to her? Is it nice to talk to her?
She died. Sometimes. No?
I don't think her parts are dead.
Oh my gosh, chill.
Brandon said she was mean.
What is today?
Why is this? How do you know what happened? Did she get it? Where did I go? Why did you write? What you doing? What? Anybody that wants to sign? No, I said anybody who knows Marley, do you want to sign a card? People always put words in my mouth. They don't even know what I say.
Windows.
Not sure.
Not sure.
And I can go back to my locker.
What? No. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down.
I know. That means you can't tell me to sit down because I'm already doing it.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Take it. Yes, you are.
There's colored pencils, markers, crayons, everything in that cabinet over there.
I want to look at the cabinet. Mr. Bittner, let's play catch me. We'll play with the football last year. You know Mr. Watkins, we have got to check my favorite video. Where? Mr. Watkins. He said his time. In the gym? Oh, yeah. He has a very sharp blade. Ooh, I saw this one once. Going once. Going twice. Stop it! Ow! Yeah, look at that. I'm gonna.
Oh, he grabbed me in my butt.
He's doing that.
Robert!
Every line in here. With underlined word here and
Wow. Shame is shame. Shun one of the devils.
So this one, 12 minutes, 12 blank into our. Which one of these would be in there? Yeah, Ramsey's great, right? You take this out, so then you write Ramsey's great, right? And then you just have to define who is Ramsey's, where he is. Okay, and you just do that there. And you do the same thing for each one of these. Each one of these, we're going to take this out. You can almost imagine there's not even a word here. It's not even blank. You have to fill it in. Okay? Yep.
Come on. Don't shave the purple
Stop it.
No.
Cole.
Stop now.
Huh? What are you doing?
Put the ball back.
I have a football.
No.
We play football tomorrow. Homeroom.
Tomorrow in homeroom? Probably not.
Oh,
You know what? I would have to say, if we could go through like an entire week of homeroom sounding like this, I would consider it.
Well, you could.
I would say yes.
The only reason is because all the lab people are working on the poster.
Oh yeah, no, you're not there.
I'm not the only one that talks all the time.
I know. Field goal.
You should be
Tell
on
the
there.
truth about it.
Yeah, but Anais, you're still in here too.
I know. I'm not talking.
Just
Like I wouldn't.
how are you not talking? You just
I said until now. So you
We just talked again.
Alright, homeroom's over. Making your spots. Put your work away.
Anthony, come on. He saw my birthday deadline.
I found it in the ground.
It's my birthday.
Let's go, people. Come on. Let's go. Guys, pencils down. We gotta go. Class starts. Pencils down. Let's go. You can come back and finish it later.
Can they? I'll come back with no
I did not forget.
You didn't forget
Did not
what?
forget.
What did you forget?
Alright.
Where'd you find it?
We have our 3 facts and stuff and like that. Do we have the facts or anything? We need facts.
Well, we have. I know we have 3 facts. We don't have down.
Okay, but we have them to put out.
Miss
Okay,
Conley.
alright, ladies and gentlemen, a couple pieces of business taken care of before we actually start what we're doing today. Alright, so a couple pieces of business. Number 1. I should leave this open because we're going to have a camera person come by.
Oh
Alright, 2 things. I have 2 groups that I don't have project stuff from, and I know that some of it was because people were absent, and then some other stuff. Keith, your group, I don't have your guys' project stuff. So if you guys can get in the lab at some point in time today and print that stuff off and bring it to me, that'd be awesome. And Stefano, your guys' group, I don't have your guys' project stuff either. So if you, like I said, if you guys can get to the lab at some point in time today or tomorrow, print that off and get that into me, that would be awesome. I definitely need it like by probably like tomorrow at some point in time, no later than tomorrow. So if you guys need to go like if you guys want, I can get you a pass to go during homeroom tomorrow to go print it off if you don't have it already printed off. Okay, the last thing, the other thing that I want to talk to you guys about really quickly before we get started is this. Oh, actually, I actually have a bunch of stuff to pass out to you. Where can you pass those out? Pass those out. Okay, you don't have the rubric? Let me double check and see if I have an actual. But if you want to staple it all together and like write your names on that so I know which ones they are, and then just put it in the box here, that'd be awesome. And then let's see, what else do I have? Please take that sheet home and have your parents fill out. In case you don't know what it is it's saying that all report cards as of now are going paperless. So instead of you guys getting like a piece of paper that's your actual physical report card, you'll get like an e-report card or an electronic report card. But it's 100% like they're not doing paper ones at all anymore. So,
For elementary there.
no, that's
This is for all
yeah, this is for everybody. So this is for everybody. Everybody's doing it this way. Okay.
Why are we proud to announce it for Saving Trees?
Why? Yeah.
Wait, why is it?
It does a couple of things. It saves money. Okay, I have a couple other things I need to pass out to you guys, and then we'll get started. Alright. Okay, let's see here.
Mr. Bittner, I need to put the poster over.
Huh? Alright, close the door and turn the light on. Okay, let's see.
Do you think this means
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have important information I need to give you. The more you're talking, the less time you guys will have to do the work that I have for you today. Tyler. That's awesome. What's going on here? And here. How you don't have the what?
Jeff, we gotta do that again.
You don't have to go there anymore because they're doing so poorly. Their grades, that they didn't meet standards.
Is it choice school now?
And it's choice school now. You can go to any district.
East is choice school?
When would this go out?
It was here yesterday.
Okay, alright. Guys, this is what we do not need to waste time on. This is stuff you guys can talk about during lunch, you can talk about at homeroom time, some other time than in class time. Like, it's interesting information, that's great. But, it's not something we need to waste time on. I don't even like talking about the book fair right now in class, but I don't have much of a choice. So, just so you know, our book fair is coming up next week. I actually have you guys signed up. In case you don't know this already, if I haven't told you, I will not be here next Tuesday. So you will have a sub. I have my language arts class. You will be going to book fair in language arts, not in world history, not during homeroom, during language arts. So if you have me for language arts, you'll be going on Tuesday and Friday is when I'm scheduled to go. Okay, so you'll go 2 different times. That way you can go once and look, and you can go again a second time and buy stuff. But that's the only times we're going. I'll put this thing up on the board so we don't forget. And then there is the online book fair. Okay, I think that kind of takes care of all of that other stuff. All right. You guys have the little booklet, the packet I gave you yesterday. Did everybody get that finished? I hope. No more. All right. I'm gonna have you guys turn that in just a moment. But before we do that, I kind of wanted to walk you guys through some. We've talked about timelines and how they're important a number of different times, and I actually found a really cool one online. It's an ancient Egyptian timeline, and it kind of shows us some of the things that we've been talking about, where certain things line up in what we've been talking about. So I wanted to kind of talk about this for just a little bit, walk through it, and then we'll get started on our next section of stuff. So we'll see how this goes. Maybe we'll watch the video. So we start out here at 3600 BC. Can everybody see this okay, or do we need to blow it up a little bit?
It's fine.
Let's get it a little bit bigger. Alright, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. We get much bigger than that, so we heard this. So 3600 BC. 3600 BC, we have our earliest settlers in the Nile Valley. We move on, we come down a couple hundred years. This is the pre-dynasty period. Remember, we didn't have the start of the dynasty until which pharaoh? Which pharaoh started our dynasty period? Pharaoh. Menes started our dynasty period. That's when we first had the beginning of the Old Kingdom. Before that, we did not have a kingdom period. We didn't have a dynasty or a kingdom period. So we were running, so we can label that time as pre-dynastic. The pre-dynastic period, which means there was before there was a dynasty. Move ahead a little while. Hieroglyphic script developed in 3100 BC. Narmer unified Upper and Lower Egypt. We learned about him in the video. They were talking about Narmer in the video. There. And then we have the early dynastic period. So we have some of the early dynastic period. Yes.
Can we turn this into you?
Are you turning that into me?
Or the office?
You guys think about it. Yeah, what was I saying? Turn it down. Thank you, Jack. That's lovely. All right, so we have one of the nice things about this is I'm going to link this timeline to my website, because one of the things that's nice about this is if you would like, you can go on here and notice how each one of these things is a clickable link. So if you want to learn more about hieroglyphic script, you can click the link and it'll take you there. If you want to learn more about Narmer, you can click the link and go there. So you can just click the link, say, let's see, what can we learn about Narmer? Oh yeah, I got it zoomed in, that's why I thought. So let's say, Narmer, what do we want to know about him? Well, Narmer, also known as Menes, so it's another name for him. So it pulls up off a little link up here on the side, Narmer, also known as Menes. How many of you guys were confused when watching the video and they kept talking about Narmer United the Kingdoms? Anybody? It's just a different name, same guy. Narmer, different name for Menes, also known as Menes, was the first Egyptian pharaoh to conquer and rule over Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay? So here we have a little bit more information about who he was. We scroll down a little bit further. A little bit later on, into the 3rd dynasty, we have our first stone pyramid was built. Anybody remember from the video who built the first stone pyramid? Brandon? Who? Ramsey the Great came much later. You remember he was in the New Kingdom. We're still living in the Old Kingdom. Khufu? Khufu is our next one we have down here. So let's say the first stone pyramid was built. The first stone pyramid built in ancient Egypt was the Step Pyramid. The Step Pyramid was built at Saqqara for the pharaoh Djoser. You don't pronounce the D, it's Djoser. Or Djoser. It was made by building several steps or layers of stone on top of each other. Remember they talked about in the video how originally when the pharaohs would die, they gave them this, it was, I can't remember what the word for it was, but it was called, it's the Egyptian word for bench. And it was just basically one flat block of stone. And that's what they were buried in. There was one room. Well, Djoser wanted something grander than that. And so he commissioned his chief architect, Imhotep, to build a massive monument. And Imhotep had the wonderful idea of taking these benches and putting one on top of the other and making them progressively smaller as they went to the top. And that's what you see in the Step Pyramid. So it was never really meant to be a pyramid, as it was sort of a stack of sequentially smaller blocks, basically, benches of tombs on top of each other. And it was built up to the sky. But it is the very first pyramid that we have in ancient Egypt. And then we move on to the pyramids of Giza. And who were the pyramids of Giza built for, or at least the Great Pyramid of Giza built for? Khufu. So now we have, in 2600 BC, we have the pyramids of Giza. Khufu's pyramid, the largest of the 3 stone pyramids of Giza, was built for the pharaoh Khufu, called Cheops by the Greeks. Cheops. It stands 147 meters high and is estimated to weigh about 6.5 million tons.
What?
Wow. Khafra's pyramid, the second Giza pyramid, was built for the pharaoh Khafra, called Chephren by the Greeks. It was built on higher ground than Khufu's pyramid, so it looks taller than Khufu's pyramid, but is actually shorter. Let's see here. There we have Khafra's pyramid. The Sphinx, the Great Sphinx, is a large large statue. Alright, is a large statue carved out of stone. It is located near Khafra's pyramid on the Giza Plateau. The Great Sphinx had the body of a lion and the head of a human. Then we have Menkaura's pyramid. The smallest of the three pyramids of Giza was built for the pharaoh Menkaure, called Mycerinus, I think it is. Mycerinus. Let me Mycerinus by the Greeks. So we have the three different pyramids built in Giza during the 4th dynasty. So notice, if you look at our little list, we have our very first pyramid, which was built by who?
I forgot his name.
Djoser.
Yeah.
It was built for Djoser. Djoser was our first pyramid, and then we have our later ones built by 3 different pharaohs. All of these are in the same family. Thank you. The same family. Notice we have different dynasties, so we have different families, right? So these 3 were built by the 4th dynasty. The 4th dynasty is going to be a group of families. This one was built by the 3rd dynasty. We have a 2nd dynasty. They didn't really build anything, do too much of anything. And then we do have our 1st dynasty, which was Narmer or Menes, who invented hieroglyphic writing and united Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay? So we have our different dynasties. All of these taking place during which kingdom? The Old. Now, we do have Menes takes place. We have him listed here as during the before the Old Kingdom, but you can consider him right at the very beginning of the Old Kingdom. Then we have a bunch of different various kings that served for a little while, sort of all over the place. A bunch of different various kings. So we can look on that and check that out. In about 2200 BC, the government in ancient Egypt collapsed, and many people fought to become the ruler of ancient Egypt. For about 150 years, Upper and Lower Egypt had different rulers. So this is why we see a separation between the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom. It's because for about 150 years, there was nobody really in charge, at least not for a very long time. It would be like, if you could imagine what would have happened if the Civil War, during our American Civil War, if the South would have actually won. If we would have gone from one country, and the South would have won, and they would have been their own country for a little while, and then at some point in time, 150 years later, we reunify, right? We would talk about our history differently, just like they do. We'd have to separate it into different kingdoms, just like they do, or different rules, right? We were one nation for a while, and all of a sudden we separated. We were 2 nations for a while, and then we got back together and we're one nation again. Okay? Yes.
Wouldn't they still be separated now?
They would still be separate right now because it hasn't been 150 years. Yes. All right. Let's see here. Then we have Mentuhotep II gained control of the entire country. So he all of a sudden gains control, starts bringing things back together. During the Middle Kingdom, we start to see agricultural developments of the Fayum. Earliest parts of the temple at Karnak were built, and Egyptians controlled Nubia. We're going to talk about Nubia and Kush in just a little bit. But if you look on our map, you can start to see, if we look at our 2 maps back here, you see in the yellow on this one where we had our Lower Kingdom, and Lower Nubia is right here. It's just on the edge of Upper Egypt. And in the Old Kingdom, the Egyptians didn't really control much of it. They didn't really go into that area. But as you start to see here in the Middle Kingdom, their territory stretches much further into Lower Nubia and even a little bit into Upper Nubia. And as you see, we move into the new kingdom, the newest kingdom. It definitely controls all of Lower Nubia and most of Upper Nubia, and even stretches down into Kush. Okay? So they're starting to spread out. Now that they've taken back control, they're one unified country again, they start to spread out and gain control over it. Remember we talked yesterday when we were going over things, we talked about the Hyksos. The Hyksos rulers took control of the Delta region. The Hyksos were a group of people from the Levant. Well, I wonder what that means. A name used to describe an area of the Middle East covering the modern states of Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. So we would have a group of people. Let's go back to our map. So we have a people. Our Hyksos came from this region up in here. And they moved down and they took over the delta, the Nile Delta. And they ran this area. And it sort of ended their rule there, sort of ended some of the Middle Kingdom. Because all of a sudden, this is where, if you look on this map, you see Giza's right here on the delta. Memphis isn't that far away. Dashur isn't that far away. These are all really huge populations. And as we see on our map, the Hyksos come down and go all the way down to Thebes. They make it all the way down that far. They took over a vast majority of the Egyptian population in the Egyptian homeland. So we have Amosa comes back in. Amosa comes in. It was Pharaoh who ruled ancient Egypt from 1550 BC to 1525 BC. In about 1550, Amosa threw the Hyksos out of Egypt and became Pharaoh of Upper and Lower Egypt. So once again, we have an invading army who comes in. The Hyksos, they start to take over things. Amosa comes in, throws them out. So we have the end of the first kingdom, of the old kingdom, happens when Egypt starts warring against itself. They don't have a strong ruler anymore. They start warring against itself to take over. The end of the Middle Kingdom comes when people invade from outside and take over. The Middle Kingdom ends then, and then they take back control. And then we have a couple different pharaohs we've talked a little bit about. Hatshepsut became pharaoh. After her was Akhenaten, who changed the Egyptian religion. We read about him. He tried to get rid of all of the gods and replace them with just one singular god. Does anybody remember what that one singular god's name was? The Aten, yes. Aten. You can sort of find it in his name. It's sort of right in his name. The Akhenaten. Aten is at the end of his name. Aten was a sun god. Yes. You guys remember there's two separate gods. There's two separate sets. There were the old Egyptian gods where there was a bunch of different gods for a bunch of different things, and Ra was the sun god. But when Akhenaten came in, he got rid of all those gods and named one new god, which was the Aten, or the sun god. And there was only one. He renamed himself to Akhenaten. And then Tutankhamun came after that. And then we have a little bit further on. Now we get into, we're still in the middle of the New Kingdom, and Ramses II, also known as what? Ramses the Great. Ramses the Great comes in, and he fights the Battle of Kadesh. He takes out a couple of people. We have a wonderful picture here. This is Ramses II. Everybody say hi to Ramses. Ramses II was a pharaoh who led ancient Egypt for 66 years. Do you guys have any idea how long of a reign that is? 66 years. He reigned longer than some people lived. That means he was in power longer than some people lived. 66 years, that's a really long time. No. Ramses II had many temples and statues of himself put up around Egypt and is known for being a great military leader. Very well known for being a great military. Yes?
Can you build like a wall, and then like people like 10 years later, people try to invade, and then that wall like supported them?
That's possible.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Also, we have Upper and Lower Egypt split. So a little bit after Ramses. So Ramses dies, and we have a couple other rulers in here in the 20th dynasty. So we're now into the 20th dynasty. And you can't have a dynasty with just one person ruling. It has to be multiple people ruling in a row. Multiple family members ruling in a row. So 20th dynasty. By the time that the third kingdom ends, we're at 1100 BC. 1100 BC. Where did we start? Does anybody remember what date we started at? 3,500 BC. So how many years did we have kingdoms going throughout
Wait, is it?
Egypt?
Oh, wait, what's the BC now? 1,100 BC?
1,100 BC. How many years? How many years did we have different kingdoms running in Egypt? That
2,400.
2,400 years. 2,400 years. There aren't even that many years on the AD side of the calendar. There aren't even that many years on the AD side of a timeline. There aren't. We're still almost 400 years away. They were in power for a very long time. A very long time. Later when we get on, we'll talk about these as we move on, but we have the Nubian king conquers Egypt, then the Assyrians attack Egypt, finally the Persians attack Egypt, and then finally the Greeks come in and they set up their own Egyptian government under Ptolemy, and the Ptolemy dynasty starts and runs for quite a while. In fact, it runs for so long we actually call it the Ptolemaic dynasty. And then we have later on Cleopatra VII dies here just around 30 AD, and Roman period begins. Just right after she died, the Romans took over, and the Romans governed over Egypt until. When did the Roman period? Roman period ended in 300 AD. Okay? So we have a lot of everything. And we'll look more at the timeline of Egypt later, but that's as far as we're going to go. Yes, what I'm going to have you guys do in just a second is we're going to move on today to section 4. It's our last section actually on Egypt. We have one more section on Cush, and we'll talk a little bit more about Cush. But we're going to move on to our last section of Egypt today. So if you would, please take out your textbooks. While you take out your textbooks, have one person from your group collect all of your homework and turn it into the homework bin.
I don't have a book.
Check. There's one on my desk.
I do have your homework.
Why did you get the pad? Don't touch me. She touched me. Hey, Lori, you brought the number?
You've got.
Yeah. Mr. Bednar. Super, that is still like Mr. Bednar. Is your girl's still like foreign language?
Guys are in chapter 4, section 4.
What page?
I don't know. 102. Egyptian achievements.
Homework.
What?
Homework.
Can you take study guides home? Then you better get it done in class. Yeah, book. There's one under that desk. Ladies and gentlemen, I've heard now from a couple of people that they do not have books. If somebody doesn't have a book at their desk, that means that somebody has borrowed a book from my class and not returned it.
I've seen those. 102.
If you have a book that you have borrowed from my class, you better bring it back. People are depending on doing their work. All right. Work, work, work. Work, work, work. Who's not here? Nobody? Everybody here? No, okay.
Bye.